The twin sons of Vel'Thar Prime bled orange light across the smog. Yaga wiped a streak of grease from her cheek and leaned against the twisted hull of an old shuttle. Around her, the scrapyard hummed with dying machines and alien curses. Sparks snapped from a hovering loader as a Gorthian supervisor barked orders, his scales catching the harsh glare. "Faster, human! This isn't a playground!" he hissed. Mira didn't answer. She was 17, small for her age, with a braid of dark hair tucked into her collar and eyes the color of cold steel. She kept her head down, hands moving fast, patching metal plates with the precision of someone who learned to survive by being invisible. At her feet, a small brown dog wagged its tail, dropping a piece of metal in front of her boots. "Good find, Echo," she murmured, hiding a smile. Echo yipped softly, proud of the scrap. He was the one warm piece of her world. Across the yard, alien soldiers moved in patrols, tall, armored, and bored. They called themselves peacekeepers. Everyone else called them what they were, jailers. Humans were forbidden weapons, art, or gatherings larger than 10. They worked, they bowed, and they prayed the aliens never remembered they existed. The shift siren wailed. Mira brushed her hands on her uniform and called softly, "Come on, Echo! Home!" They slipped through narrow alleys between shattered cargo towers toward the lower quarter, where human families lived in stacked metal boxes. The air reeked of burnt fuel and dust. Children whispered stories of the days before the Empire, when humans roamed the stars freely. Mira never spoke during those tales, she only listened and wondered what her father had been before he vanished. Inside her shelter, a one-room compartment barely large enough for a bed and a table, Mira filled a tin bowl with recycled water for Echo. He lapped it up, tail wagging. "You're the only one who listens," she said softly. Outside, thunder rolled. Not the sound of storms, there hadn't been real rain here in years, but the engines of a descending transport. Imperial banners fluttered across the main square. Word spread fast, the general had arrived. Myra's stomach tightened. She peeked through the cracked shutters. Troops lined the streets, forming ranks around a massive figure in red armor. General Crotho Raxar. The name carried weight even among aliens. Rumors said he'd crushed 3 human uprisings personally. His presence meant someone had angered the Empire again. By nightfall, lights blazed in the square. Raxar stood on a raised platform surrounded by alien officers. His voice, amplified and cold, boomed through the speakers. "This planet grows lazy. Too many humans forget their place." The crowd of laborers bowed their heads. Mira stood near the back, clutching Echo close beneath her coat. She'd been dragged here by soldiers with the rest of the work detail. Raxar gestured toward a captured thief, a young man who had stolen food from an alien storehouse. 2 soldiers threw him to his knees. Raxar didn't even look at him when he spoke. "Mercy is weakness," he said, raising his gauntlet. "And weakness," Echo barked. The sound sliced through the silence like a blade. Heads turned. Raxar's burning eyes locked onto Mira. "Who brings noise to my order?" he asked, voice calm but heavy. Mira froze. The soldiers spotted her and shoved through the crowd. Echo barked again, trembling in her arms. "I'm sorry," she whispered, stepping forward. "He's just frightened." A scaled hand ripped Echo from her grip. Raxar towered above her, eyes glimmering with amused contempt. "A human pet. You people breed weakness in every form." He backhanded her. The strike threw her to the ground. The world blurred. Echo barked wildly, lunging toward the alien general's boot. Raxar sighed. A faint glow spread along his gauntlet. One flash, one hiss, and Echo fell still. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The air itself seemed to vanish. Myra's breath hitched. She crawled toward the small, motionless body. "You didn't have to." Her voice cracked into nothing. Raxar looked down at her, as if inspecting broken machinery. "Remember this lesson, human. Silence is obedience." He turned to leave. The soldiers laughed. But among the crowd, One small maintenance drone lifted its lens. It recorded everything: her tear-streaked face, the lifeless dog, the laughing soldiers, the red armor walking away. Then it zipped upward into the shadows. Mira knelt in the dirt, holding Echo's body close, feeling the warmth fade from his fur. The aliens dispersed. The crowd remained silent. Some looked away in guilt, others whispered prayers. Mira heard none of them. That night, the city slept uneasily. Lightning arced across the sky as storm shields flickered. In her small room, Mira wrapped Echo in a worn blanket and placed him beside a cracked photo frame of her parents. She didn't cry anymore. Her silence was colder than grief. Outside, hidden in the wasteland beyond the city walls, an old human smuggler checked his transmission logs. A blinking red signal had appeared, a short data burst from a local drone. He played it once, frowned, and sent it to an encrypted relay deep beyond known space. The message contained 15 seconds of footage. No commentary, no coordinates. Just a girl, a dog, and an alien general's arrogance. The smuggler didn't know the man who would receive it. But those who whispered his name used only one title: Baba Yaga. The next morning, the scrapyard felt wrong, too quiet. The supervisor called her name twice before realizing she wasn't there. Her tools lay neatly folded on the bench. A small metal tag with Echo's name hung from a nail. In the streets, soldiers murmured that the general's speech had gone well. Order restored. They didn't notice the missing drone. High above the planet, the relay pulsed again, transmitting its data across the void. Somewhere in the far reaches of space, beyond the Empire's jurisdiction, an abandoned station caught the signal. Dust floated through empty corridors. A single terminal flickered awake. Static filled the room, then stabilized. The image appeared, a young girl on her knees beside a fallen dog. A man's shadow moved across the light. He stood still for a long moment, head lowered. Then a hand reached forward and touched the screen. A whisper broke the silence, low, human, and filled with something ancient and dangerous. They touched my daughter. A switch flipped. Power surged through the station. Machines stirred like beasts waking from hibernation. Weapons bays opened after decades of sleep. In the scrapyard, Mira buried Echo under the hull of an old transport ship. She pressed her palm to the ground, whispering, "I'll remember." Far away, the galaxy itself shifted course. The Empire didn't know it yet, but Vel'Thar Prime had just awakened a nightmare they thought long dead. The asteroid hung in eternal silence, its surface carved by forgotten wars. Deep inside its hollow core, a single human outpost slept beneath layers of dust and cold metal. Lights flickered on one by one as the station stirred, responding to an encrypted signal that had traveled light years across the void. Inside the command chamber, a man stood motionless before a holographic screen. The image played on repeat, his daughter kneeling on the dirt, holding a still shape in her arms. Her lips moved soundlessly, but he didn't need to hear. He had seen that look once before, a lifetime ago, on another battlefield. Baba Yaga removed his gloves slowly. His hands were scarred, calloused, and precise. He exhaled through his nose, a faint tremor breaking the stillness. "Play it again," he said. The AI responded in a voice as old as the station itself. "Playback number 37 confirmed." The hollow replayed. The alien general raised his glowing gauntlet, the flash, the fall. Myra's scream. He watched until the last frame froze. Then he spoke quietly, as if to the screen itself. "She was all I had left." The AI hesitated before replying. "Mission protocols were suspended 20 years ago. Re-engagement requires manual authorization and confirmation code." He reached for a small steel case on the table and flipped it open. Inside lay a battered dog tag engraved with his name, Colonel Elias Yaga, UHS Special Operations. He placed it on the scanner. "Authorization, Yaga Delta 1. The AI paused. "Confirmed. Operation Ghostfire reinitiated." A dull vibration ran through the structure as ancient engines came alive. The dormant station breathed again. Hidden panels slid open, revealing racks of armor, weaponry, and sleek black ships coated in dust. Elias turned toward the dim corridor where faint lights guided him to the hangar. He moved like a man who'd once lived by instinct alone, every step measured, silent. Behind him, a small drone drifted into view, its metallic frame humming softly. "You're serious," it said, voice tinged with disbelief. Elias looked over his shoulder. "You're still operational, Sparrow?" "Barely. I've been babysitting ghosts for 2 decades. "Good. I need a navigator." The drone circled him once. "You swore off vengeance. Remember?" "I swore off war," Elias corrected. "This isn't war." "Then what is it?" He picked up a plasma rifle from the rack and checked the charge. "Correction." The drone hesitated before following him into the hangar. Rows of ships lined the chamber, each one sleek, old, and deadly. He approached a small fighter marked with faded human insignia, fingers tracing the emblem, a white wolf howling against the red field. "Wolf 1, he said softly. "Didn't think I'd ever see you again." As he began pre-flight checks, the drone hovered close. "What's the plan? Because if you're thinking of walking into an Imperial command center alone—" "I'm not thinking," Elias interrupted. "I'm remembering." The drone's tone turned wary. "The Empire's changed. You can't just light a match in their system and expect to walk out." Elias climbed into the cockpit. "Matches start fires. Fires spread." The engines hummed awake, filling the hangar with a low growl. Meanwhile, light years away on Vel'Thar Prime, Mira sat in a dark cell beneath the Imperial garrison. Her wrists were bound, her head aching from dehydration. The faint sound of dripping water echoed through the walls. A guard approached, his armor clicking against the floor. "The general wants her quiet," he muttered to another. "She hasn't said a word," the second replied. "Creepy, isn't it? Just stares at the floor." They didn't see her fingers tracing a small mark in the dust, an old symbol from her father's stories. A wolf's head. Back in space, Elias's ship slipped out of the asteroid's shadow, engines running silent. He activated stealth fields and plotted a course toward the Imperial border. "Transmission relays online," Sparrow reported. "I can spoof your identity for 24 hours before they flag the code. Plenty of time." He adjusted his seat and glanced at the hollow projection of Vel'Thar Prime. "We'll start with intel. I want every garrison layout, every patrol route, every officer's name." The drone beeped. "You already know who you're going after. I need to know who stands between me and him." Sparrow scanned the databases. "General Crotho Raxar. Appointed military governor 8 years ago. Responsible for multiple suppressions. Known for cruelty." Elias's jaw tightened. "He's efficient. That's why they keep him. Efficient monsters usually are." The ship passed through a field of debris, wreckage from the old human Imperial War. Twisted metal floated in silence, remnants of a time when humanity had dared to fight. Elias watched it drift past. Sparrow broke the quiet. "You think she's still alive?" He didn't answer at first. The question cut too close. Finally, he said, "If she's not, he'll wish she was." Hours later, the ship reached a relay point near the Empire's outer defenses. Elias shut down the main drives and coasted through the void. The AI displayed a hollow map of the target planet. Surface heavily monitored. Orbital stations, patrol cruisers, ground-based ion cannons. Sparrow listed. Stealth entries near impossible. Near. He studied the map, eyes narrowing at the northern pole. "What's this? Abandoned supply route. Closed after the uprising 12 years ago. Then it's forgotten," Elias said. "We'll enter there." The drone hesitated. "This isn't a rescue. It's suicide." Elias powered up the reactor. "Not if they still underestimate humans." Sparrow buzzed irritably. "They always do. That's the problem." He gave a small, humorless smile. "That's the opportunity." The ship dropped out of warp near Vel'Thar Prime. From orbit the planet looked lifeless, gray clouds choking the sky, sprawling industrial cities below. Imperial warships floated above the atmosphere like vultures. Elias activated the cloak and descended into the lower atmosphere. Flames streaked across the hull, painting the cockpit in orange light. His pulse remained steady. He'd done this 1,000 times before. Landing zone locked, Sparrow confirmed. Terrain matches pre-war data. The ship skimmed across barren dunes before settling inside a collapsed hangar. Dust swirled through the air. Elias stepped out, boots crunching on dry soil. The air smelled of ash and rust. In the distance, faint lights marked the Imperial City, his destination. Sparrow hovered beside him. You know, most people would bring an army. He adjusted his rifle. Most people don't get results. Night covered the wasteland. Shadows stretched long as he began moving toward the lights, silent as a phantom. Above the planet, Imperial sensors flickered briefly, then went dark. An unseen signal infiltrated their network, rewriting access codes, disabling alerts. In the garrison, Rakhtar frowned at his console. Why are the perimeter systems offline? Minor glitch, sir. An officer replied nervously. Fix it. Rakhtar turned away, unaware that a single human had already entered his world. Far below, Elias crouched beside a ridge overlooking the city. The wind carried faint echoes of alien laughter from the streets. He closed his eyes, listening. For the first time in 20 years, he felt alive. Status? He murmured. Network infiltration at 60%. Sparrow replied. Once complete, you'll have control of their comm grid. Good. I want them to hear her name before they die. The drone's sensors flashed. You're really going through with this? Elias raised his rifle, gaze fixed on the glowing city below. They made the first move. He pulled the trigger once. The shot wasn't fired at anyone, it was a signal, bouncing through encrypted frequencies across the hidden human network still buried under Imperial surveillance. Across half the sector, old transmitters lit up for the first time in decades. The ghost was back. The first bodies were found at dawn. 2 Imperial soldiers, both veterans, lay in the alley behind the eastern supply yard. Their weapons were missing, their armor stripped, their throats cut clean. No scorch marks, no plasma residue, just precision. General Rakhtar stood over the corpses, his nostrils flaring with irritation. Another human uprising? He asked. The officer beside him hesitated. No signs of a mob, sir. Security footage was deleted. Every frame. Rakhtar's eyes narrowed. Deleted? By whom? We're still investigating. Rakhtar glanced at the walls. A symbol had been carved into the metal with something sharp, a wolf's head. Primitive, human, and deliberate. He turned to his officers. Find whoever's responsible and make an example. If one human blinks wrong, I want them flayed. The soldiers dispersed quickly, afraid to meet his gaze. But fear was already spreading through the lower districts faster than orders could control it. Humans whispered in the alleys, voices trembling not with terror, but with hope. In the wastelands beyond the city, Elias Yaga crouched inside a derelict comms relay, hands gloved and steady as he rewired the old systems. The soft hum of Sparrow filled the silence. That's the 3rd patrol this week, the drone said. You're making them paranoid. That's the point, Elias replied. Fear is a weapon. Let them use their own against them. He tapped a console, bringing up a hollow display of the city's defense grid. They're blind in sectors 7 through 12 now. I want their main supply route next. Sparrow drifted lower. You've got a knack for turning ghosts into strategies. Ghosts are all we ever had. He reached for a detonator and set it against the relay core. Once this detonates, their comms will reroute through my network. Meaning? I'll hear what they hear. Inside her prison cell, Mira sat on the cold floor, head tilted toward the ceiling vents. She'd stopped counting days. Light and darkness meant nothing down there. But lately, she noticed something strange. The guards whispered less. Their confidence was cracking. One night, the older guard, a weary insect named Vel, paused by her cell. What did you do, human? He muttered. Mira looked up slowly. What do you mean? The city's cursed, he said, antennae twitching. Our patrols vanish. Supply lines burn. Whole squads disappear without a trace. She studied him, voice quiet. And you think I did that? Vel shifted uneasily. You started it. That's what they say. Mira smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. Maybe I did. He flinched and hurried away. When the lights dimmed, Mira closed her eyes. Somewhere beyond these walls, she felt a pull, a sense of motion, of something vast moving in her direction. She didn't know if it was hope or hallucination, but it felt alive. 3 sectors away, a convoy of armored transports rumbled through the desert, carrying ammunition and fuel toward the city. A storm of red dust followed them. Inside the lead vehicle, the driver tapped the comms. Control, this is Delta 1. Approaching checkpoint. Static. Control, respond. Nothing. He frowned, checking the radar. That's odd. No signal bounce. A sudden flash of light sliced through the night. The lead transport exploded, flipping sideways. The others slammed brakes, alarms blaring. Out of the smoke, a figure walked through the dust. No armor, no insignia, just a shadow carrying a rifle. He moved with surgical precision, each shot dropping a target before they could react. Within seconds, it was over. Silence reclaimed the desert. Sparrow hovered behind him, scanning the wreckage. You've got their attention now. Elias knelt beside a dying soldier, reptilian blood pooling beneath him. Who sent you? The alien coughed, voice raspy. You can't win, human. Elias looked into his eyes. I already did. He pressed a small beacon onto the soldier's armor and stepped back. Moments later, the body shimmered and dissolved, disintegrated by a micro-detonation. No trace left behind. Message sent, Sparrow said. Good. Elias's tone was calm. Now they'll start to wonder if I'm real. Back at the garrison, Rakhtar slammed his fist onto the command table. The lights flickered from the impact. I want every satellite scanning this planet. Who dares strike Imperial forces? An aide stammered. Sir, the locals call him a ghost, some kind of legend from their war. Rakhtar sneered. Superstition. Another officer spoke up. With respect, General, these aren't random attacks. The infiltrations are surgical. Power grids, fuel depots, communication hubs, he's dismantling us piece by piece. Rakhtar turned sharply, his voice like steel. Then we'll burn every human district until he comes for us. He didn't notice the flicker in the hollow display behind him. For a brief second, the image distorted, revealing a human face watching him from the static. Then it vanished. That night, Elias transmitted his first message through the hijacked network. It was short, broadcast on every Imperial frequency for less than a second before vanishing. For echo. The message appeared across screens in hundreds of garrisons before self-erasing. The Empire tried to trace the signal and failed. It didn't come from any known system. Sparrow spun midair, tone almost amused. You're taunting them now. I'm reminding them, Elias said. Every tyrant forgets what they fear. He checked his wrist display, map lines shifting as new data came in. They'll move her soon. The girl's too valuable as bait. You think they know who she is? They'll know by tomorrow. He stood and slung his rifle over his shoulder. We'll strike again before dawn. In the city's underlevels, Mira heard distant explosions echo through the walls. Dust rained from the ceiling. The guards ran past her cell in panic. One dropped his keycard. She watched it slide near the bars, just out of reach. She stretched her hand through the gap, fingers trembling. The tip of her boot nudged it closer, then, finally, she grasped it. The cell door clicked open. Heart pounding, she stepped into the corridor. Alarm sirens blared in the distance. She didn't know where to go, but she moved on instinct. The prison's upper corridors were chaos, lights flickering, smoke filling the air. She passed open cells, other humans shouting her name, urging her to flee. She promised she'd come back for them. Near the exit, she found a console with live feeds from the outer wall. Through static interference, she saw figures moving through the smoke, humans, armed, organized. Not rebels. Soldiers. One of them turned toward the camera for a moment. The image was blurry, but she froze. The posture, the way he held the rifle, it couldn't be. Her voice broke in a whisper. Dad? The feed cut to black. Above, in the sky, fire rained over the Imperial supply depot. Explosions rippled in synchronized bursts, each one precisely timed. From the ground, it looked like a storm, but every blast was deliberate. Sparrow's voice crackled through the comms. Supply lines crippled. They'll feel this one. Elias watched the inferno from the ridge. Not enough. Not yet. You've done more in 3 days than the human resistance did in years. He shook his head. This isn't resistance. This is debt collection. He turned away from the flames. Now we take the citadel. The drone paused. That's suicide. Elias's gaze hardened. No. That's justice. Far below, Mira ran through the broken corridors toward the outer gates, guided by the glow of the explosions. Above her, on the ridge, her father moved toward the same light. 2 paths, 1 hope. And the galaxy was beginning to whisper the name again. Baba Yaga. The night above Vel'Thar Prime burned crimson. Dozens of explosions carved fiery veins across the horizon as Imperial patrol ships spiraled out of control. The once proud garrison city was now a battlefield of smoke and flame. Inside the chaos, Elias Yaga moved like a shadow through the debris, every motion deliberate. He wasn't fighting for spectacle, he was dismantling a machine. Each strike crippled supply routes, severed communication towers, and disoriented the enemy into shooting their own. Sparrow hovered close, scanning the battlefield. Sector 12's down. You've cut their primary defense grid. They're blind. Good, Elias said, reloading calmly. Blind soldiers panic. Panic breeds mistakes. He raised his rifle, aiming through the haze. A squad of alien troops advanced down the street, sweeping their scanners. He threw a thermal blade into the nearest fuel line. The explosion swallowed them before they could shout. Sparrow's sensors pulsed. The general's pulling troops from the citadel to secure the industrial quarter. That's his mistake. The citadel is my goal. Sparrow hesitated. You can't take it alone. I'm not alone. He pointed toward the lower streets, where figures moved through the smoke, humans emerging from hiding. Mechanics, laborers, scavengers, all carrying stolen Imperial rifles. Tell them, Elias said. The drone activated a broadcast channel. A familiar human voice echoed across the static frequencies. This is Baba Yaga. You've been silent long enough. Rise. Every hidden transmitter, every smuggled earpiece, every half-dead radio across the planet carried that call. The voice that once led fleets now spoke again. And the humans rose. Mira stumbled through the ruins of the prison, clutching a stolen blaster. The corridors shook from distant detonations. Smoke filled her lungs, but her steps didn't falter. Every fiber of her being screamed to move forward, to find him. She followed the thunder of battle until she reached the outer wall. The sky was alive with falling ships and tracer fire. Amid the chaos, she spotted movement on the ridge, someone in dark armor advancing toward the central spire. Her heart lurched. She whispered, "It can't be." The figure moved with a purpose only one man possessed. Her father. At the citadel, General Rakhtar watched the city unravel from the control balcony. Red alarms painted his scaled face in flickering light. He turned toward his officers. Report. Sir, the uprising is planet-wide. Human workers are seizing armories and sabotaging vehicles. We've lost communication with half the sectors. Rakhtar snarled. How? One man cannot do this. The officer hesitated. It's not one man anymore. Rakhtar's claws scraped the railing. Then we burn them all. He gestured toward the fleet command terminal. Order orbital bombardment on the lower sectors. Purge the infestation. The officer blinked in horror. Sir, our troops are still on the ground. Rakhtar's gaze silenced him. Collateral. Moments later, the sky split open as plasma rounds rained down from orbit. Streets erupted into pillars of flame. Screams and static filled the calms. But even as the city burned, the humans didn't stop. Elias sprinted through the collapsing streets as fire swallowed buildings around him. Sparrow darted ahead, mapping a route through the chaos. Bombardment patterns erratic. They're panicking, Sparrow said. We can use it. Guide me to the Citadel's northern gate. They reached a blast crater near the base wall. Elias tossed a shaped charge against the steel barrier and ducked behind cover. The explosion ripped a hole through the plating. He moved inside, silent and lethal. Every guard he encountered fell before he could shout. As he advanced, Sparrow intercepted a new transmission. They've activated orbital lockdown protocols. Once sealed, no one leaves the planet. Then we end it before that happens. Meaning? I kill the general tonight. Sparrow buzzed. And if you die doing it? Elias's tone didn't waver. Then humanity remembers who made them bleed first. Inside the Citadel, chaos reigned. The power grid flickered, backup systems sputtered, and command lines crackled with noise. Rakhtar stalked through the hall, armor scorched, rage barely contained. Bring me that human's head! He roared. The doors behind him exploded inward. Smoke filled the corridor. When it cleared, Elias stood there, rifle leveled. Rakhtar smiled coldly. So the ghost walks into my house. Elias lowered the rifle slightly. You killed my daughter's dog. The alien blinked, confusion breaking his composure. What? You made it personal. Rakhtar laughed, a deep, rumbling sound. You think this is about your spawn? You are a relic human. Your kind are broken tools we allow to exist out of pity. Elias's eyes held no emotion. Then consider this mercy revoked. He fired. The plasma bolt struck Rakhtar's shoulder, spinning him back. The alien roared, drawing his blade. The weapon glowed with red heat as he charged forward. They collided with bone-shattering force, slamming into a steel column. Sparks flew as blade met blade, Elias deflecting with his combat knife, parrying each brutal swing. Rakhtar's strength was monstrous, but Elias moved with precision born of endless war. He struck joints, arteries, breathing gaps. Every motion calculated. The alien snarled. You can't stop the Empire. I don't have to, Elias said. Just you. Rakhtar lunged again. Elias dodged, seized the alien's wrist, and drove his knife between the armor plates. The blade slid deep. Rakhtar staggered, clutching his wound. You'll die with this planet. Elias pulled the trigger on his pistol, firing into the fuel conduit above them. Flames roared down as he dove aside. The explosion tore through the hall, engulfing Rakhtar in a wave of fire. Elias rose slowly, smoke curling around him. No, he whispered. I'll live long enough to watch it end. Outside, Mira raced toward the Citadel gates. The fires painted her face orange as she climbed over debris. She saw the spire collapse, one side glowing with fresh explosions. Sparrow appeared above her, scanning. Mira Yaga? She froze. Who are you? Your father sent me. Her voice trembled. Where is he? The drone hovered closer. Inside. He's ending it. Mira looked up at the flames. Then I'm going to him. Before Sparrow could stop her, she ran into the breach. Inside, she navigated corridors filled with smoke and wreckage. The walls glowed red from emergency lights. She heard gunfire echo from deeper within. Then, a voice, hoarse but familiar. Mira? She turned a corner and saw him. Elias stood amid the ruins, weapons still smoking, the body of Rakhtar smoldering nearby. For a moment, both simply stared, two survivors bound by silence. Mira ran to him, the blaster falling from her hands. He caught her as if afraid she'd vanish. You shouldn't be here, he said quietly. You came, she whispered back. He exhaled, holding her tighter. Always! Above them, the citadel shook violently. Structural alarms wailed. Sparrow's voice crackled through the haze. We need to leave, now! Elias guided Mira through the collapsing corridors, dodging debris and fire. They emerged onto the balcony overlooking the city. The bombardment had stopped. The Imperial fleet was in ruins. Human fighters, patched together, stolen, reckless, were chasing the remaining ships into orbit. Myra's eyes widened. We did this. Elias nodded. You did. They climbed aboard a grounded shuttle as the citadel began to crumble behind them. Engines roared to life, lifting the ship into the burning sky. Below, Vel'Thar Prime glowed like a forge, destroyed yet reborn. Sparrow's sensors pulsed. The Empire will send reinforcements. Elias looked out the viewport, voice low. Let them come. As the ship rose above the clouds, Mira rested her head on his shoulder. What happens now? He didn't answer. He watched the stars instead, eyes hard, heart steady. Somewhere above them, the first human transmission in decades spread through the void. Vel'Thar Prime is free. And across the galaxy, millions heard the name whispered again. Baba Yaga. Smoke drifted through the ruined corridors of the citadel, the scent of scorched metal heavy in the air. Alarms wailed somewhere deep below, fading into static as systems failed one by one. Elias Yaga moved through the destruction like a ghost born of fire. His armor was scorched, his breathing ragged, but his purpose cut through exhaustion like steel. Behind him, Mira followed silently, her steps quick to match his. She kept her blaster ready, eyes scanning the shadows. Outside, the city still burned, though human banners now fluttered above the rubble, symbols painted in ash and blood. Sparrow hovered ahead, projecting faint blue light. Power readings ahead, Citadel core still active. Raksar's not dead. Elias's jaw tightened. He's too arrogant to die quietly. The corridors narrowed as they descended toward the command deck. Every few meters, bodies littered the floor, Imperial soldiers, security drones, even a few human prisoners who hadn't escaped in time. The deeper they went, the thicker the air became with heat and smoke. Mira spoke softly. We should leave before the reactors collapse. We end this first, he said, voice firm. Sparrow scanned the door ahead. Biosign detected. Large. Aggressive pulse rate. Elias adjusted his rifle and motioned for Mira to stay behind cover. Stay back until it's done. She wanted to protest but saw something in his eyes, finality. She nodded and stepped aside. Elias pushed the door open. The command deck was a shattered monument to Imperial pride. Consoles flickered and sparked, walls scorched black. At the center stood General Krotho Raksar, armor half melted, one arm hanging limp, but still alive. His reptilian eyes burned with hatred as he turned. You humans never know when to die, Raksar hissed, gripping a massive plasma blade in his remaining hand. Elias entered slowly, rifle aimed but not firing. And you aliens never learn when to stop underestimating us. Raksar laughed, though blood stained his fangs. You think killing me changes anything? The Empire spans 1,000 worlds. You're nothing. Elias took a step closer, unshaken. Nothing was enough to find you. Raksar swung the blade, a burning arc of light. Elias rolled aside, firing 2 shots that slammed into the alien's chestplate, cracking the armor but not stopping him. The general charged, knocking the rifle from Elias's hands. The weapon clattered across the floor. The two collided in a brutal clash of strength and precision. Raksar's strikes were heavy, wild. Elias's were measured, deliberate. Metal rang against metal. Sparks scattered like dying stars. Raksar roared, grabbing Elias by the throat and slamming him against the console. You fight for ghosts, he growled. You'll join them soon. Elias's hand shot up, jamming a combat knife between the alien's ribs. I already live with them. Raksar staggered back, snarling, blood pouring from the wound. He swung the blade again, clipping Elias's shoulder. The impact spun him sideways, pain shooting down his arm. Mira watched from the doorway, frozen between fear and fury. Her father was bleeding, and yet his eyes held that same calm she remembered as a child, a calm that terrified monsters. Elias stood straight again. "You killed my daughter's dog," he said, voice low but steady. "You thought that was power." Rakhtar spat, laughter shaking his chest. "A dog! That's what brings down a general of the Empire." Elias holstered his knife and drew a plasma grenade from his belt. "No. That's what brings down an empire." He pressed the switch. The device hummed with rising energy. Rakhtar lunged, slamming Elias into the wall. The grenade fell, rolling across the floor. Both men stared at it as it pulsed brighter. Rakhtar grabbed Elias by the collar and snarled, "If I die, you die with me." Elias smiled, a tired, human smile that made the alien hesitate. "That's the difference between us." He twisted, breaking Rakhtar's grip, and drove his fist into the alien's throat. The general staggered backward, gasping. Elias dove for the grenade, disabling the detonation just before it triggered. He rose, calm again, grenade still in hand. Rakhtar coughed blood. "You could have ended it." "I'm ending you, not myself," Elias said. He stepped forward and forced the grenade into Rakhtar's chest wound, pressing until it clicked into place. For echo. He stepped back. The explosion was short, contained, and absolute. The blast swallowed Rakhtar in a column of white fire. When it cleared, only ash remained fused into the scorched floor. Mira rushed in, voice shaking. "Dad!" He turned toward her, covered in soot but alive. "It's done!" Sparrow hovered close, scanning the wreckage. "The Citadel's core is unstable. We have 5 minutes before the whole structure collapses." Elias nodded and motioned to Mira. "Time to go." They sprinted through the corridors as the floor trembled beneath them. Fire tore through the walls, and alarms blared louder than before. When they reached the exit, the ceiling gave way. A steel beam crashed down between them. Mira cried out, reaching for him. "Dad!" "I'm fine," he shouted, shoving debris aside. "Keep moving!" She hesitated, unwilling to leave. He locked eyes with her, voice steady despite the chaos. "Mira, listen to me. You get to live. That's your fight now." Before she could answer, Sparrow swooped down, projecting a path through the wreckage. "Follow me!" Elias climbed over the debris, joining her at the outer balcony. The Citadel's upper levels glowed red, molten energy spilling from ruptured conduits. In the distance, human ships streaked across the sky, firing at retreating Imperial cruisers. Mira stared at the horizon, awe and grief mixing in her expression. "It's over." Elias shook his head. "No. It's just started." They reached the landing pad where a battered shuttle waited. Sparrow interfaced with its systems. "Engines online. Minimal fuel, but it'll fly." As they climbed aboard, a transmission crackled through the comms, a deep alien voice trembling with disbelief. "To all Imperial sectors, Vel'Thar Prime has fallen. Repeat, Vel'Thar Prime is lost." The message repeated across frequencies the Empire couldn't censor fast enough. Elias sat in the pilot's seat silent, as the words echoed through the cockpit. Mira watched him. "You really were gone all these years, weren't you?" "I was trying to forget what humans could do when pushed too far." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then maybe it's time they remember." He looked at her, pride softening the lines of his face. "They will." The shuttle lifted into the sky as the Citadel imploded below, collapsing into a storm of ash and fire. The explosion painted the clouds red. Sparrow's voice broke the silence. "Incoming signal, human origin, encrypted. Broadcasting system-wide." "Play it," Elias said. A voice spoke across every surviving comm channel on the planet, an old smuggler's voice. "To any human listening, Vel'Thar Prime stands free. The ghost has returned. The Empire bleeds." Cheers erupted in the streets far below. Humans raised their weapons, shouting one name into the burning sky. "Baba Yaga!" Mira turned to her father, eyes shining. "You started a revolution." He shook his head. "No. They did." I just reminded them how. The shuttle broke through the cloud layer, revealing the stars, bright and cold. The wreckage of Imperial cruisers drifted like dying embers. Elias leaned back in the seat, exhaustion finally overtaking him. Set a course for orbit. We need to warn others. Warn them of what? Sparrow asked. That humanity's done hiding. Mira smiled faintly, watching the blue glow of engines stretch into the void. And what about you? He closed his eyes, voice fading to a whisper. I'm just a story now. But outside, the stars burned brighter, as if the galaxy itself was listening. The ashes of Vel'Thar Prime drifted through orbit like gray snow. Imperial ships burned silently in the void, their hulls cracked and venting atmosphere. The once untouchable fleet was now nothing more than debris glinting in the starlight. From above, the planet looked wounded, its surface scarred by fire, its cities half collapsed. But within those ruins, something extraordinary had awakened. Humanity had remembered itself. Elias Yaga watched from the cockpit of the shuttle as the horizon curved beneath them. His reflection stared back in the glass, older, hollow-eyed, and calm. Beside him, Mira slept against the co-pilot's chair, exhaustion softening the edge of grief. Her small hand still clutched Echo's collar. Sparrow hovered near the control console, voice quiet. Orbital scans show all Imperial signatures retreating. They've declared the system uninhabitable. Elias's lips twitched, almost a smile. They'll tell themselves it's lost. Easier than admitting they were beaten. By one man? Sparrow asked. By what they thought was extinct. He leaned back, closing his eyes. For the first time in years, there was silence in his mind, no missions, no ghosts, no orders. Just the distant hum of engines, and the steady rhythm of his daughter's breathing. Mira stirred awake, rubbing her eyes. We're still flying? Still alive, he said gently. She looked out at the burning horizon. Is it really over? Elias considered the question before answering. Wars like this don't end. They change shape. Sparrow broke in. We're receiving transmission requests from multiple human colonies, encrypted, pre-war codes. You've started something larger than one planet. He didn't reply immediately. His gaze drifted toward the stars, remembering every battle, every order, every comrade who died believing humanity had no future. Now those same stars shimmered differently, like eyes opening after a long sleep. Patch them through, he said. Static filled the cockpit, followed by faint voices. Some were weak, some distorted, but all carried the same word. Yaga. Mira frowned. They know your name. It's not my name anymore, he said quietly. It's what I became. One of the voices broke through clearer, a woman's tone, strong despite static. Vel'Thar Prime stands free. Is it true the ghost fights again? Elias hesitated, then leaned forward. This is Colonel Elias Yaga. The Empire fell here. It can fall again. Spread the signal. Humanity stands. A long silence followed. Then one voice answered, then another, until the entire frequency erupted in cheers, laughter, and tears. Across the sectors, scattered human enclaves heard the impossible truth. The ghost had returned. On the imperial capital world of Threxos Prime, the news reached the Grand Council within hours. Admirals, governors, and senators filled the marble chamber, their faces pale beneath the holographic map of Vel'Thar Prime. Every red mark represented a destroyed ship, every flashing symbol a fallen garrison. This is not a rebellion, one admiral hissed. It's extermination. Someone coordinated those attacks with military precision. The High Chancellor leaned forward, voice low and grim. Identify the leader. An aide stammered, projecting a grainy image on the display, a human male, mid-50s, gray at the temples, holding a rifle amid flames. Name Elias Yaga. Former United Human Systems Special Operations. Presumed dead 20 years ago. The chamber erupted in uproar. A senator pounded his clawed hand against the table. Impossible. That man was a myth. Then myth killed your fleet, the Chancellor said coldly. And myths spread faster than armies. He turned to the military council. Double patrols in all human sectors. Suppress every rumor. No one must speak that name again. But it was too late. The name had already crossed systems faster than light. Back on the shuttle, Mira stared at the endless void. They'll come for us. Elias nodded. They always do. Then what do we do? He smiled faintly, eyes softening. We do what humans have always done. We adapt, we rebuild, and when they come, we remind them. Sparrow projected the map of the surrounding systems. Several colonies blinked red, hidden human settlements long thought extinct. Multiple beacons answering your call. Some offer resources, others request protection. Then we start small, Elias said. One world at a time. He leaned over the console, typing commands. Transmit a news signal. Broadcast everywhere. Sparrow hesitated. What message? Truth. A moment later, every stolen transmitter across the liberated sectors received the same recording. Elias's voice calm, unyielding, unmistakably human. To every species who thought humanity was finished, listen carefully. You conquered our worlds, burned our homes, broke our people. You believed fear would silence us forever. But you forgot something simple. Humans don't vanish. We endure. We wait. And when the time comes, we return. We're done surviving. Now we reclaim. The transmission ended. Mira looked at him with awe. That sounded like a declaration. It's a warning, he said. For them, and for us. The fight's not about vengeance anymore, it's about memory. Hours later, they landed near the ruins of their old home. The scrapyard where Mira once worked lay quiet beneath a blood-red sky. Twisted towers jutted like bones, but among the wreckage, human hands were already building. Children carried cables, engineers repaired old machines, and laughter returned to streets that had known only silence. The planet was breathing again. As Elias and Mira stepped out, people gathered, dozens, then hundreds. Some saluted, others simply bowed. None spoke his name aloud, but their eyes said everything. A young man approached, wearing a mechanic's jacket. Sir, they said you'd left the galaxy. Elias shook his hand. Not yet. The man smiled. You gave us back hope. Hope's just a start, Elias said. Make it worth something. He walked with Mira to the edge of the yard. There, under the wing of a burned transport ship, rested a small patch of disturbed soil. Mira knelt, placing Echo's collar gently on the grave. She whispered, We made it, boy. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. He'd be proud. For a long time, neither spoke. The wind carried the faint hum of machinery, and the sound of humans laughing again. Mira finally stood, brushing tears from her face. Where will we go now? He looked toward the stars. Wherever they still call us extinct. Sparrow hovered close, voice softer than usual. You know, some will call you a hero. Elias smiled faintly. Let them. Heroes die. Legends get remembered. He turned to Mira. But you'll lead what comes next. Her eyes widened. Me? Someone has to show them that we fight for more than anger. You understand that better than I ever did. She nodded slowly, the weight of his words sinking in. Then I'll make them remember, too. Elias watched her, pride flickering behind the exhaustion. Good. Because I'm done being the ghost. As night fell, the stars shone bright over Vel'Thar Prime, clearer than they had in centuries. Campfires dotted the landscape where cities once stood. Around them, stories began again. Stories of a man who returned from the dead, of a girl who defied an empire, of a dog whose death woke a world. In the quiet, a smuggler tuned his old radio and whispered into the frequency that connected 1,000 scattered colonies. The Empire called him a myth. The humans call him something else. He paused, smiling.